Welcome to our Where's the Beef video series. I'm Tiffany Lashman, Extension Agricultural Law Specialist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. We're excited to bring you this series of videos related to direct beef sales. Funding for this project was provided by the Southern Risk Management Education Center. As part of that funding, we really would appreciate you taking the time to fill out our evaluation. We'll have a link to the evaluation in the notes below. We'll also have a link and a QR code available at the beginning, middle, and end of each video. In order to fill out our grant reports and complete our grant funding, we really need results from these evaluations. So we are pleading with you, if you watch these videos, please take time to fill out the very quick, very short evaluation. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy our Where's the Beef video series.
My name is Megan Foote. My husband Garrett and I started Foote Family Meats in the fall of 2020, kind of after COVID hit, because of the scarcity of proteins and foods in the grocery store. And so what we quickly found was that for every 10 phone calls that we got, we sold 1 or 2 whole or half beefs. But there were a lot of people in between that would have been interested in buying 20 or 30 pounds worth of meat. So we really it opened up our eyes to the opportunity for us to be able to start focusing on more of a retail side. My husband helps his father manage 10 Foot Cattle Company, which is a large stocker cattle operation in eastern New Mexico. And then they have another yard that they partner with in West Texas over in Farwell. And so our headquarters operation is in Texaco, New Mexico, very close to Clovis. And they have been raising, focusing primarily on stocker cattle, but have always fed out some beeves to finish them off to sell in bulk. We thought, we might start something on the side and start selling more retail cuts and finishing off more cattle for this purpose. So it started there, and then as we had more interest, it kind of grew into us sitting down and having a serious conversation of, do we want to take this on and start it as an actual business as opposed to just a side gig? And we sat down, had that conversation, and decided, let's give it a try. And we made the decision pretty early on that we wanted to go all in. And we started making some strategic decisions of what's our 5-year plan, what's our 10-year plan. So we kind of set those plans of how we wanted our business to grow early on. And how we started was I made the decision, I quit my consulting job and started focusing 100% on this business in the summer of 2020. Did all of the formal paperwork and things, and then started creating and building our website, created a logo, and established kind of a brand identity. And so from there, we launched our business online, promoted it primarily through Facebook starting off. How we started was we were selling individual cuts. You could buy any beef cut a la carte basically through our website, and we had bought a mobile cargo trailer that we converted and we hooked up electrical in there, and we bought a bunch of commercial grade chest freezers. And what we were doing was we were selling online and then taking this trailer into town, into Clovis, and into some towns in West Texas, and customers were able to pick up their orders. And so this was really pivotal for us because New Mexico was still shut down from COVID for much longer than other states. So we really had to focus on the contactless delivery. We also keep the mobile trailer fully stocked. So we prepare pre-orders that have been placed online, but as our notoriety locally in Clovis has grown, we have a lot of customers who just come by every single week and they sort through the product that we have on the trailer, and then they just buy in person as well. And we do offer free local delivery. We'll do quarterly deliveries into Oklahoma and some other communities that we've kind of established business in. And so that's how we've been operating for the past 2 years. We are now just about ready to open up a full meat market, which has been kind of our long-term goal. Because our customer base has grown so much locally, we're now opening up a meat market in Clovis. So our main focus is going to be our locally raised premium beef. We're going to have a lot more flexibility, and so our focus moving forward is going to be offering fresh instead of frozen product. And then we'll still continue to have some frozen product that's been completely processed through USDA facilities so that we're able to ship that across state lines. By the time that we had our ducks in a row and figured out, what shipping carriers we wanted to use and what shipping materials and all of that, by the time we got out there and started advertising it, there were a lot of people. There are a lot of factors that come into the buyer's decision-making process, and one of those being price. So it's hard for us to compete just given where we are regionally. I think it would be different if we were closer to the Dallas metro or a large hub like that. For us, being where we're at in eastern New Mexico, it takes longer for us to get our products to their destination because they have to go from here to a hub and then out. So that requires us to add more dry ice. For us, sometimes a customer's order, whatever it is that they're ordering, could be the equivalent or less than what they have to pay in shipping. So I would say that's the biggest hurdle. And then just again, where we're at, it's a warmer climate, so getting stuff sent off, it takes longer to get there. We ran into a lot of issues where we might have paid for 2-day shipping, but something got delayed, it sat in a warehouse over the weekend, and before we knew it, we might have had a couple of $1,000s in loss of product that was no one's fault other than the shipping carrier, or there might have been natural disasters. You're losing a couple $1,000s here or there when stuff like that gets ruined, basically, that you then have to replace free of charge for the customer. So just logistically, it didn't really make sense for us for that to be the main focus of our business. We've now worked in kind of some protective procedures to keep us from losing while still trying to keep prices as low as possible for customers. So we promote our shipping more so around like Christmas, starting around Thanksgiving, really promoting Christmas gift packages, and then we'll ship some in January. We'll do some advertising for Father's Day, Mother's Day, a couple of other holidays, although meat sales in the summer are typically very high because that's barbecue and grilling season. So we start focusing our grilling season advertising efforts to our local customers instead. Using targeting advertising is huge. I think if you're going to invest any money into advertising, making sure that you're reaching the correct demographics for your area. So I would say, making the decision of who is your customer base starting off, before you launch your business or in those beginning stages, because for us, we thought that our target demographic was going to be a younger, more Instagram-focused crowd who was wanting to buy online and buy directly from the producer and know the story behind the producer and all of that. That turned out to not really be the case. We were able to drive more sales through Facebook, which was an older demographic. A lot of people in our area here in Clovis and eastern New Mexico are Facebook has probably been the #1 best return on investment for us. So I don't really run ads on Instagram, but I will put a lot more money into running targeted ads to our particular demographic here that are more so an age range from like 35 to 60 is what I would say is more so our sweet spot. And that's the crowd that we see on Facebook. That's where we see a lot of clicks of people going directly to the website to purchase our product, whether they're picking it up locally or having it shipped. Well, and there's so much data just at your fingertips that, there's just no sense in not taking that information and doing something with. So utilizing the insights and data that Facebook and Instagram, and if you're using a marketing agency that's doing digital ads for you, they'll have reports. Being really diligent about going through and looking at those numbers and seeing what's working and what's not working, running different taglines or different promos, changing your color schemes. It could be as simple as that. And then seeing, what we're even able to take a look at it and see what products are performing the best. There'll be, certain things that I run advertisements for that I don't get a lot of traction, but they're items that sell well. However, anytime I run an ad for tenderloin or ribeyes, I get a ton of engagement, and those people will click on that ad, go buy a pack or two of ribeyes, and then they buy a bunch of other product as well. So just having those types of insights and really paying attention to them and then using that to make informed decisions is really important. First off, from the social media standpoint, if you set up an actual business page, that's really important because some people will establish their company page or their small business just through a normal Facebook or Instagram profile, and you're not getting those kinds of insights if you set it up that way. So there's a lot, even beyond just the data and the reporting, there's a lot of other benefits to having a professional business page. So make sure when you're setting up your social that it's specifically business focused, and then you get those insights. So they provide, social media provides all of that data, but then you can also connect your social media profile to, you can embed a link into your Shopify website. And so the two will speak to each other and pull insights from both. So, and then they give you a lot of data and insights on like your finances. How many visitors did you have on your page that day? It'll tell you how much money came in that day, how much money is being spent. So I think the time commitment is going to differ from business to business depending on what your particular goals are. So for me, it is a full-time job, but we made that decision strategically in the beginning when we created the business that if we were going to do this, we wanted to go all in. Mm-hmm. We had goals on where we wanted to take the business. We have friends in different parts of the country that are kind of doing the same thing, but it's more of a side hustle. It's a small piece of their business. They enjoy doing it. It blends nicely into their cattle operation, but they have other responsibilities, and so they've kind of hit a cap on how much time and money they want to spend on it. So it's just a matter of making the decision on what are your goals, and then kind of making a determination on how much time you have to be able to put in it. Is it something you can afford to dive off and take the risk of it being your full-time job, or have someone in your family or somebody who works for you who can take it on full-time? Or is this something you only have, part-time availability for because you have other responsibilities? So with us trying to grow into opening up the meat market and getting into all of these things that are very new to us, there's been a lot of learning curves along the way. It's taken a lot of time, I would say, beyond 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And then you have to take into consideration too, and that's my time focused just on the retail side of the business, not the cattle side. The way we kind of run our business is it's 50-50 between me and my husband, but his focus is 100% on the live cattle side of things. We're always bouncing ideas and communicating on both parts of the business, but he's solely focused on helping manage the stocker operation with his dad, and then our own personal cattle stuff that we've got going on, and then the finishing yard that we're starting to establish. So his focus is on the live side, and then my focus is from the time he selects the one that we're going to kill, the block that we're going to kill, and then I arrange transportation and handle it from there on the meat side. So, he's in it full time, I'm in it full time on my side. But that was a decision that we made. I think it's totally doable depending on, if there's producers who are wanting to just sell wholes and halves. That's obviously going to be less of a time commitment. If you're going to get into selling box bundles or shipping online or selling individual retail items, there's a lot more work and time that requires. Keeping up with inventory, making sure that you're consistently marketing and advertising your product, staying on top of budgeting and accounting and the back end of the business. So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what are your goals, where do you want to be, and then going from there. We've been very fortunate to establish some really good relationships with different processors in Texas and New Mexico. And so we've learned a lot of things. Even though we have processors that we really love, there's always issues. We have friends who are in the processing industry, and so we fortunately didn't have any issues even jumping into this during COVID. Mm-hmm. We never really had any issues from a scheduling standpoint, but one recommendation I would have is start going around. If you're completely new to this and you're just starting to book your first kill slots, before you get anything on the books, contact those processors, talk to a manager, schedule a time to actually go and meet and tour the facility. I think that's incredibly important. Depending on how close or how far they are from you or potential customers, there may be instances where you have customers who are ordering something in bulk and they want to pick it up directly from the processing facility, or if you don't have somewhere set up for them to pick it up, you may be directing all of your customers to get it directly from the processor if you don't have cold storage. Making sure that it is a nice, clean establishment that's well run, that's something that when your customers show up there to pick up product, if you made the decision to work with them, that's a direct reflection on you and your business's reputation as well. So one, just the visibility of that, I think, is something to take into consideration. And then just also how well you kind of connect and are able to work with the managers and the people that you're going to be communicating with. You know, we've worked with some processors over the years that we would fill out a cut sheet and send it to them, and they say okay, and then we get it back, and they just kind of did whatever they wanted. And we're like, you know, hey, we're busy. Your business isn't going to make that much of a difference. So making sure that there's people that you trust doing business with, that there's open lines of communication, so that if you have any issues, and inevitably you will, even with the best processing facilities, there's going to be minor things that pop up. Are there particular cuts that we're not thinking about that there is a market for, that we could be, you know, getting more value out of what we're doing? So finding somebody that's really willing to work with you from that standpoint. And then, you know, making sure that they're okay with it, depending on where you're at in your business and how consistent you need kill slots. If you can get, you know, a standing few days each month on their calendar, and just, you know, stay in close contact with them on that. One thing that we've learned using small processing facilities is they have their own issues to work through. And so whether that be, you know, issues with their building, they may need to replace their roof, or their coolers will go out too, and you may be in a bind where you have to hurry up and go get product that you had down there that you weren't ready to take yet. Or, you know, if their team gets COVID and they're shut down for a few weeks, you could have, we've been in positions where we have orders that have already been placed and deposits put down on for beeves, and then they can't operate for 3 to 4 weeks or until they're able to get over whatever obstacle is that they have in front of them. So making sure that you have a plan B and a plan C. What we always try to do is we find one main processor that we really like working with, that, you know, we get good yields from, that are able to give us really good production reports. I think first and foremost, if you can find a processing facility that has the tools and equipment in place to be able to provide a very detailed production report, that is huge. That will save so much headache for you in the long run. We've worked with all different kinds of processors, ones who just are writing, you know, total weights on a box and listing out in Sharpie what products are in there. And then we have to go through and we're counting thousands and thousands of pounds of beef, which takes a lot of time, writing down how many individual packets of steaks we have, what the exact weights were, and then also just when you're listing stuff online, making sure that you're not overselling something that you don't actually have to be able to offer. So what we prefer is for the processors that we use primarily, that we're sending a lot of cattle to, if we're sending anywhere from like 10 to 30 head, we obviously can't count that out every time we get it back. But what they'll do is they'll send us a production report that tells us what the hot weight was, what was the total weight of box beef that we received back, so we can figure out our yields there, get an idea of what we need to price it per pound if we're going to sell it as a whole beef. And then even more granularly, they'll break down, you know, whatever cuts it was that we put on the processing sheet. They'll say you had 20 pounds of ribeye steaks that you yielded, and then it'll break down how many individual packages and then what the weight of each one of those packages was. For us, that's very important because of the shipping aspect. We can't charge by the pound through Shopify. We have to kind of figure out an average weight, and then we charge per package. So if we have a lot of weight variation, that impacts our bottom line, and we have to price around it. So if you can find, I think from the inventory side, keeping things straight from a financial perspective, and then just having your numbers and being able to know what you have to sell, those production reports are very, very essential. So that's something I would think to be looking for in the processing selection process. But two, whether you can get that or not, the importance of just doing it. If you have to sit down and count out how many pounds you have of each thing, you have to do it. That's really the only way for you to know when do you need to get more cattle killed. So I think inventory was a huge one for us, and I would assume that's probably a lot of people's answers. We had about 10 or 12 beeves, and what we learned, and this is what in talking to other people who have been doing this is the number one thing that they find too, is that you will sell out of all of your middle meats, so your steaks, your tenderloins, your T-bones, your porterhouses, all of those higher end cuts, you'll sell out of those very, very quickly. And then you're left with a lot of your lower value, still high quality products, but your ground beef, your roast, things like that. People are willing to pay more for a ribeye, but they're not willing to pay that high of a price for ground beef. So we really struggled the first year and a half, I would say, with hamburger inventory. So we were in the position of, one, we had a lot of money tied up in ground beef inventory that was just sitting there. And then two, the shelf life started to become a concern. You know, it was all cryovac packaged, so it'll last in the freezer a really long time, but we still don't want to hold on to that for too long before getting it into the customer's hands. We want the longevity of that shelf life to be, you know, available to them to put in their own freezers. So we made the decision to slash prices just to get that product moved. I think we had somewhere around like 6,000 or 7,000 pounds of ground beef to move at that point. And we had some backup plans if that didn't work on how we were going to move it, and some restaurant contracts and things that we were just starting to get going. But we thought it might take about a month or so to move through that. And when we slashed those prices, we sold out within 48 hours. So for us, that was a big eye-opener that it's okay to do that sometimes. You may not be making money on it. We didn't take a loss on it. We just figured out what our break-even was, sold it for that. We had people driving from Kansas and Oklahoma and Arizona to buy thousands of pounds of this hamburger meat at one time. It opened us up to an entirely new customer base, even in our small local town, of people who didn't know we were doing this, that are now regular customers because they saw that ad and they weren't seeing some of the stuff we were posting before. And then it also got us started on the partnership that we now have with the Eastern New Mexico Food Bank. So since COVID, there's been a big push to try to keep state funding in the state of New Mexico, whereas previously the food bank was using grant funding and having to go out of state to Texas or Colorado to buy product in bulk. They're now pushing them to try to keep that in our local economy, which we're so excited about. And through that one hamburger meat discount advertisement, they came to us and said, you know, let's work out a deal where you can sell it to us at a more of a value price in bulk. And they're buying anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 pounds of ground beef from us a month, which has now, and we offer it to them at a discount, but you know, we're now not taking a loss on that. It's not taking up as much space in our freezers. It has opened us up to even a larger customer base across the entire state of Eastern New Mexico. So it's brought in new customers, more visibility for us, and it's solved the problem that we faced of not being able to get as many cattle killed. And now with us transitioning into the meat market where we expect to be selling even more steaks than we were before, it's going to continue to help us keep from letting too much ground beef stack up. We still keep a certain percentage of ground beef back to sell to our customers who don't mind paying a little bit more. So we'll always keep several hundred pounds of that just available on a weekly basis for those guys. But for the most part, we're sending a lot of that to the food bank. And then we're now also getting into, our ground beef is going to the schools in New Mexico. We have a couple of schools that have already signed some contracts that have committed to that. You know, that was a lesson we learned the hard way, but it actually ended up working out really well for us in the long run. The other thing that I would say is, if you have a long-term goal in mind, sitting down periodically and thinking, like, what are the necessary steps that I need to take to get there, so that you're kind of being more proactive in the planning process, especially from an investment side. As we were growing, we grew quicker than what we anticipated. And so there were things that we had thought about. We were contracting out cold transportation to get our stuff picked up from the processor and either taken to a customer or taken to our freezers, which that is just another cost that you're incurring that has to be passed on to the customer. And so we knew that as we were transporting more and more product and we were processing more and more cattle, that we needed to have a plan in place to be able to do that ourselves, especially with the foresight of opening up the store as well. So we made the decision of, we need to buy a reefer trailer. And we started looking around, prices were high, we weren't quite ready, we weren't to the point where we needed it, but we got to that point very quickly where it was an absolute necessity, and by the time we needed to buy it, prices on those things had gone up exponentially, as we've seen with a lot of different materials and supplies just over the last 2 years. So we found ourselves in that position with that, among many other things like equipment and other things like that, or additional cold storage. We very quickly outgrew the walk-in that we had originally bought. So we were a little bit slow to act on those things, but I think looking back, that was a huge lesson for us, that we sat down and we made the decision that we were going to go forth with this. we needed to sit down, we needed to take a more proactive approach, I guess, to what's really important from an investment standpoint. What are the things that are nice to have for your business, but what are the things that are really integral for you to be able to grow and to be able to serve your customers like you need to. We're in the talks with more restaurants here locally. I will say that, yeah, it has boosted our online sales and shipments to that particular area.
Gotcha.
And so what we do is whenever we start working with a restaurant, we've worked with some here locally where they will do stuff where maybe they don't have it as a reoccurring item on their menu, but it's something that they do like periodically. So they might do, like a Foote Family Meats steak night once a week or once a month or something like that. What's been hard for us is a lot of restaurants want to do steaks in particular. That's what they're looking for. When you start building a relationship with a restaurant, they're going to need a lot of steaks. And so you have to be processing a lot of cattle for that to not deplete your retail inventory. So what we've done, that's been the biggest, I think, hang up for us on the relationships with the restaurant side of things is getting the products that they're looking for. What we try to push is ground beef for hamburgers and then chicken fried steak meat or fajita meat. And so when we're establishing those relationships and kind of figuring out, what's the plan, how are we going to make this work, how much do you need, when do you need it, how popular is this item on your menu, how much do you sell through? There's a lot of things to figure out instead of just saying like, okay, yeah, we'll take 300 pounds of this and then not knowing, are they going to need 300 pounds more next week or next month? Because you have to plan for that in your inventory. But we work with them, and what we do is we say we'll do dual promotion. So it's kind of a win-win for both. They'll promote it either somewhere in their restaurant or on the menu, and then through their social media pages, and then we do a lot of active promotion as well, saying, hey, go check out so-and-so's place, they're featuring this or one of our items. And so we'll share that and push it, and we'll go in there and take photos of the product, push it through our social channels, reshare their stuff, so that it kind of works for the both of us. What we keep on our retail side, we have pretty much everything from the offal, the liver, the kidney, bones, to ribeyes. So very rarely is there any cut that somebody comes to us that we don't have. There'll be things that we run out of stock on, but then we're quickly trying to restock those particular items. And we have things that, we may not need to keep as much of, so we'll put that into grinds later. But for the most part, we have options. So for a restaurant, they're not doing a custom kill or filling out a custom processing sheet because they're not willing to take the whole beef. They're looking for one or two particular products. They don't want everything else. So for the most part, they're just coming to us and saying, hey, we want to see if we can get, 1,000 pounds of chuck from you on a monthly basis for a food truck or something like that. Then what we're doing is we're just trying to figure out a way to make that work with our current inventory and our other retail sales and see how much of that we can actually get them. Depending on the restaurant or what they serve, they have very specific needs. Yeah, and I tell a lot of restaurants no. And that's why we've been slow to get into that, because there's a lot more to it, I think, than what people think initially. Like I said, the steak issue has been a problem in the past. We've grown to the point where we're killing entire semi-loads of fat cattle now. So we're more in the position than we were last year or even 6 or 8 months ago. So it's not so much for us being able to fill the quantity, which it was in the past, on some of higher-end products like tenderloins or steaks, things like that. We can make that work now, but it took us a while to get there. The other problem that I'm now facing is, we really focus on, we're selling, the cattle that we're keeping back and processing are comparable to USDA Prime or High Choice. And we do a little bit of lower choice steaks just to offer some variety at different price points. But we don't really offer select product. Majority of that all goes into our grinds. So, we're pricing things that way. They're typically used to buying stuff from distributors like Cisco or other companies like that, where they're getting it a lot cheaper than what we can. We'll work with them on price point, but then there's also the standpoint of we're marketing and advertising our premium steaks here in our store, and say somebody goes down to a local restaurant and has one of our comparable to prime ribeyes, that they're paying a lot more for to get this local steak in the restaurant. And they may have a lot of turnover in their kitchen, which we see that a lot in a small town. There's not as many options for like high-end chefs who know how to precisely cook something correctly every single time, or maybe aren't as consistent about getting things to medium rare or rare, however they're ordering it. So if a customer who would potentially come in and buy ribeyes from us, instead their first experience is having that ribeye at a local restaurant and it's cooked poorly, their interpretation may not be that the chef didn't prepare the steak appropriately. It could be that the product was bad, which therefore then turns them off from coming into our retail store to buy that from us directly, where we're able to make, where we have more profit margin to be made. So it's thinking about the little things like that, of the impact of making more strategic decisions on who you want to be working with there. There's less risk with that when it comes to ground beef and hamburger and stew meat and things like that, but when it comes to the steaks, which is kind of what we consider to be our bread and butter, and that's the big selling point to draw people into our store or to draw them into sales through our website, we just want to make sure that any experience that they're having with our product is a positive one.